In this video, we're talking about watering needs for grass seed. I'm going to tell you about my favorite sprinkler setup, and I'm going to give you some watering strategies for your next seeding project. My name's JJ, that's Marty, and this is the Lawn Lab. Now before we dive in, we need to establish some terms. There are three different types of watering needs for lawns. There's watering for established lawns, new lawns, and then currently seeded lawns. An established lawn is a lawn like this, which is over 2 years old. In other words, you haven't seeded in over 2 years. Then there are new lawns, which are less than 2 years old. This lawn, for example, I renovated last fall, so it's 1 year old. It's important to understand this because you're not just going to be watering grass seed, you're going to be watering lawns for the rest of the time that you take care of them. Per the University of Maryland, a new lawn, less than 2 years old, is going to still need to be watered to make sure that it can get into the mature, established stage. So even after your renovation project, you're still going to have to be watering next season. And usually that's going to be in the form of either irrigation or rainfall, ideally about 1 inch of water per week. Established lawns, on the other hand, have grown to maturity and their root zones are deep enough and dense enough that they could be pretty self-sustaining and really only need to be watered as needed. And what that means is really just during prolonged periods of heat and drought stress. Now, as a professional and somebody who cares about the environment, I firmly believe in letting our cool season lawns go dormant during the summer. We don't need Augusta National all season long. Augusta National doesn't even get Augusta National all season long. However, I also believe that if you're going to put all the time, effort, money, energy, and resources and water into renovating your lawn in the fall, then you should also do what it takes in order to sustain it throughout the next few seasons in order to get to that self-sustaining, dormancy-proof yard that we all want to enjoy. So moving forward, if you're planning a seeding project and you're looking at all the hoses and sprinklers that you're going to need, also keep in mind you're going to need to break those out next season as well. Now you're going to have to water it the same way as a newly seeded lawn? Absolutely not. But all of these drought and heat resistant cultivars that you're being marketed towards, that you're going to be seeding this fall, aren't actually going to be drought and heat resistant until they get established. Let's talk about watering grass seed. This is what I tell homeowners when they ask me how to water their newly seeded lawn. Keep it wet. When you walk on it, your feet should get wet, but you shouldn't have any standing water, no mud, no footprints. If you can water in the morning, in the middle of the day, and then when you get home from work, everything should be just fine. But let's get more specific. So let's say your sprinkler went off right around sunrise and you're coming out around noon or 1 o'clock to move the sprinkler to another zone and you're noticing that your feet aren't getting wet. Is that the end of the world? Absolutely not, but you should be watering again relatively soon. Furthermore, many of us have lawns where there's a mix of dense shade and then full sun areas. It's going to take you only 2 or 3 times of watering to know where you need to adjust the time and frequency in order to maintain consistent moisture levels throughout your lawn. So just keep the seed wet. I can't outline every single specific watering scenario, but I will say the majority of seeding projects that do fail aren't because the person didn't get out there enough to water. It's because the seed and the soil wasn't prepped correctly. After you sow your seed, take the back of a rake and gently rake it into the soil and making sure that it's getting that good seed to soil contact. Trust me, once you do good prep work, all of your efforts watering are going to take care of themselves. So how do I water? Well, this is what I've dialed in as my absolute favorite sprinkler setup. I've used tons of timers, hoses, sprinklers, you name it. This is my absolute favorite. Now let me get this out of the way. I am not sponsored by any of the companies who make any of this equipment. If you buy any of this stuff from Amazon, then I do get a little bit of a kickback. And if you're not okay with that, then just go open it in another browser and buy it that way. I don't care. I just want you to have green grass. Let's first start with the timer. This is my favorite sprinkler timer I've found that is not powered by an app or a phone. It is by Melnor, and my favorite thing about this is that it doesn't just give you the option to water every hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, but it allows you to set individual cycles based not only on the day, but also you can start them at specific times. So you can have it watering at 5 a.m. and then 5 hours later, water at 10 a.m., and then 3 hours later, water at 1 p.m., and then another 4 hours later, water at 4 p.m., and then it shuts off for the rest of the day. I really like the adjustability and the customization of this product. And then there's the sprinkler itself. Now, I got the idea for this from a silver symbol video years ago, and it is an in-ground sprinkler head that I have attached to this tripod sprinkler base using this adjustment fitting right here. So it's a 3/4 inch threaded inlet to a 1/2 inch threaded inlet. And that allows me to take the impact sprinkler off that normally comes with this and put this guy on for way more adjustability and reliability. So if you look for a tripod sprinkler online, you've got the Orbit brand over here, and then you've got every single other knockoff over here. And the only real difference I found is the height. Build quality is the same, as well as this thread fitting, which is fantastic. So just go with what you can afford. I was telling you all earlier that you're going to have to be committing to watering in the future as well. So what I really like about this tripod sprinkler is that once I put it up, then I can just tuck it away in the corner and then break it out whenever I need it. Water as needed. Last but not least, hoses. They're probably the most annoying part of any above ground irrigation system. I always recommend get a longer hose than you need. You can always just coil it up, but we're not made of money. This hose is 100 feet long. It's from Harbor Freight, and it is the contractor grade hose. I really like it. Great bang for buck. It's probably not feasible though for every one of us to run a single hose to every single sprinkler, either just due to distance or money. So let's get into some tips and tricks on how to stretch your watering budget even further. First question, can you effectively water 2 different areas using one sprinkler? Absolutely. Let's put a line on the screen and call it Zone A and Zone B. Set your sprinkler timer, which is crucial here, to fire every 6 hours. Your sprinkler timer is going to go off around 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. At sunrise. Then, after it goes off, you're going to wake up and you're going to move this sprinkler over to the next zone, and then you're going to run it manually before you go to work. Then you're going to go to work, it's going to stay there, and it's going to go off around midday, 6 hours later. Then you're going to get home, and then you are going to move it back over here. Then you're going to run it manually, and then for the last watering of the day, the last time the sprinkler is going to go off, you're going to move it back over here. So you watered this zone twice and this zone 3 times. You're going to leave it in the new zone, and then you're going to repeat that process. So every day, one section's going to get 2 waterings, one section's going to get 3, and then you're going to reverse that. It may seem like a lot of work, but your grandfather climbed Mount Suribachi. You can water your lawn for a month. A common issue people run into when watering their seeding project is that they try to stretch the watering as far as they can. And what they'll do is that they will hook up a sprinkler, and then they will continue with the pass-through to the other sprinkler. And then when you turn it on, you don't get the performance that you want because you're now dividing your water pressure and that water output between 2 sprinklers, so that 8,000 square foot radius or whatever the heck that it advertises is actually probably half of that, because it wasn't designed to be split off into 2 separate sprinklers. We can amend that. Gotta pay the Marty tax. We have one hose hooked up to one zone on our sprinkler timer. Now, 100 feet later, we have our first sprinkler, but we're not just going to put the hose right into it. We are going to use this hose splitter from Harbor Freight. This is the best hose splitter I've found. Most hose splitters have like a very small port to shut on and off the water, which really constricts the flow and the amount of gallons per minute. Killing me, Smalls. This is what I want you to do. I want you to hook this hose up to this hose splitter, and then we're going to hook one of these ports up to our sprinkler. from the hose splitter, then we take our second hose to our second sprinkler, and now what we can do is we can shut off at the hose splitter and then fire different zones using the same sprinkler zone. So if you want to, you can set it up to run more frequently and just go out and turn the hose splitter rather than having to completely move sprinklers around all over your property. Now, if you buy the sprinklers, if you buy the hoses, if you buy the timer, it could be yours for 4 easy payments of $49.99, but that's starting to add up. This is another tip that I've come up with, is that you can't eliminate the hoses and the timer, but the tripods you can eliminate with PVC pipe. Now this 3/4 inch threaded fitting that these take, you can find these in the hardware section, the plumbing section. And then this would just screw on like so. And then connecting here is PVC pipe I have going down, and then I have another threaded fitting to put my hose into. And this is just a piece of like garden stake that you'd use for like really delicate plants. And now you have a $5 PVC stand running your super high-end sprinkler for a fraction of the cost. All right, let's reward you guys with the attention spans to make it this far with some watering tips that I use as a professional in order to make sure my seeding projects are successful. Number one, right after you sow your seed, you'll get it worked into the soil. Your first watering, water heavy. Don't just water for 2 to 3 minutes at a time. Water heavy, 15 to 20 minutes. Still no washout, still no pools of water, but water as heavy as you can, because what that's going to do is get the seed started quicker, and it's also going to set it into the ground a little bit better. It's going to make sure you get all of the seed wet. If you only water for 2 to 3 minutes, then it's going to take an extra few days for that seed to germinate. Make sure that water gets into the ground, gets onto the seed, and then start your 2 to 3, 5 minutes at a time, whatever it might be. Really stretch your water and try to take advantage of Mother Nature is aerate. If you aerate, then all of those little plugs that you pull become planters for your grass seed. And it is much easier for those to store water than it is for you to be watering several times a day. So if you have like a really large area to water, or you're not confident in your watering abilities, maybe you work a job where you can't be managing it as much as you'd like, then aerate and then overseed. And I promise your seeding project is going to be a lot more successful. Don't kill everything. Yes, kill your weeds, rake out what you need to, but if you have good turf grass still hanging around, then that is going to act as vegetation, which is going to hold the seed in. So if you do get a really heavy rain event, or again, if your watering isn't as good as you want it to, that vegetation is going to hold in the moisture just a little bit better and hold the seed in place a little bit better, and it's going to be much more risk averse than if you were seeding onto bare ground. Finally, I don't really recommend using peat moss. I think there are much more important things to spend your money on, especially when doing a seeding project, when you're already paying for sprinklers and hoses and grass seed, possibly sourcing out aeration from a guy like me. The more I've learned about peat moss too, where it comes from, how it's harvested, the environment it's coming from, I really don't think it is good for those environments. They're very delicate and it's a finite resource. So I highly recommend you just dial in your watering. Peat moss is like $30 a bale right now, which covers like 1,000 square feet. You're much better off not doing the peat moss and instead honing in your watering. Ladies and gentlemen, some closing thoughts. Number one, don't get hung up in the minutia here. Don't get hung up in the details. Just get out there, prep your soil well, seed at the recommended rate, and then just be diligent about watering. Do the best with what you have. You don't have to buy all of this stuff, I promise. The second thing is going to be, don't be afraid to walk on the grass seed. Try to limit traffic, but if you have to move a sprinkler around, if you only have one, that's okay. If you are seeding late in the season and there's leaves falling, don't be afraid to mow them once a week. If your grass is getting really long from an overseed, it's not a problem to get out and mow if you have to. It's going to be fine, I promise. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll do the best I can to answer them. My name is JJ. For Marty, this has been the Lawn Lab.